Hello, people of the internet. On today's special report, we're going to talk about the Gawker.com shutdown after the bankruptcy and the subsequent buying out by Univision. A lot to talk about concerning my thoughts on the whole ordeal. My name is Shitty Shadow, and the special report will start right about now. Well, as many of you probably are aware, Gawker Media is going to be no more, at least on the front of official. After the sale of their properties to Univision, the mothership is getting shut down. According to Wire.com, Gawker.com is shutting down next week. Gawker Media's new owner, U.S. Spanish language TV network Univision, made the decision to shut down the site after bidding $135 million for the web publisher's 7-site portfolio in a bankruptcy auction earlier this week. A bankruptcy judge is set to approve the final sale later today. Keep in mind, this happened on the 18th. It took me a little bit of time in order to actually get to this story, but be it as it may, let us continue. Gawker outgoing CEO Nick Denton broke the news to staffers in Gawker's Manhattan office today. The end of Gawker is also the end of an era in the web's short history. As one of the original online journalism upstarts, Gawker pushed editorial boundaries beyond the necessities of traditional mainstream journalism in a way that has come to define the tone and style of the news on the web. At its worst, Gawker published articles with seemingly little news value, like its purported outing of a Condé Nast executive, which is Wire's parent company, by the way. At its best, Gawker punched up with a vengeance, holding powerful public figures and institutions accountable, which is not what I would think, but whatever. In the process, Gawker often angered those same powerful people, including two fateful posts that led to his undoing. One that identified billionaire venture capitalist Peter Thiel as gay, and another that excerpted a Hulk Hogan sex tape. Thiel secretly bankrolled Hogan's invasion of privacy lawsuit against Gawker, and Hogan won in court. The $140 million judgment against Gawker eventually bankrupted the company, forcing it to sell its editorial assets. Now Gawker.com is no more. Gawker writers will reportedly keep their jobs at one of Gawker's Media's 6 other sites, or at other properties owned by Univision. The TV network also owns the tech-centric Fusion, the black news and cultural site The Root, as well as minority stake in the satirical site The Onion. Whether those writers land, Gawker's shuttering is a stubborn reality check, not just for its own employees, but journalists in general. Whether or not you agree with his approach, Gawker's willingness to push limits and stir controversy underscores the whole point of the First Amendment. The biggest downside is losing the financial independence that let us write whatever we want without any fear of corporate overlords trying to squash us, when Gawker Media writer told Wired when the company declared bankruptcy. Now it seems those outside forces, with the help of a powerful tech tycoon, accomplished just that. I would not agree with that sentiment by Wired or by that Gawker Media writer. The bulk of what they did was clickbait journalism, which basically means they did what they had to do in order to make you click beyond the fold and get those page clicks and eventually those ad revenues coming in. That was about it. But what differs between what Gawker did and what many other sites that do the same thing have done is that they went into this slimy aspect of journalism, into this whole thing where it is beyond tabloid stuff, to where it's beyond, okay, they might just be making stuff up for the sake of getting you to click on it and getting you to invest in their ads or whatever else they were selling. And that was the whole gist of this. That was the whole point of it, was to get you to click. But the problem with that is that they thought they were above everybody else. They were above journalism. They were above the law. They were above everybody. And they were doing things just to troll people. They were getting those page clicks on the back of them, just angering a whole bunch of people just for the sake of angering them, and without any real justification for putting things out in the open. What reason was there for them to even touch upon the Hulk Hogan sex tape? There was absolutely no reason for them in order to defy a judge's ruling. Remember what they tweeted out in 2013? They actually said that a judge ordered them to take down the Hulk Hogan sex tape, and they would not. Who does that? Who actually goes and says, hey, a judge ordered us to do this, a judge would assume this on the back of a law about something that really has no newsworthy value to it other than the fact that you could actually do something to a celebrity and yet you're not gonna do it. Why continue to have that up there? What news aspect does that hold? What newsworthy situation did you have to make it justifiable to oust a Condé Nast executive? You had no reason whatsoever to do that. And it goes far back as 2007 when you got Peter Thiel. And the point of this is that many people are saying it took a millionaire in order to take Gawker down, and though it is good that Gawker was taken down, the fact that it had to be Peter Thiel that did this puts a bit of an asterisk to this. My response to it is, first of all, if Gawker had to be taken down by a millionaire when it did all of these horrible things to people, when they've done so many slimy stories and they made up stuff and they were beyond tabloid quality, then why did we allow it to take on this form and to get that big to where it had to take somebody like Peter Thiel and Hulk Hogan to take him down like this? How did we allow that to happen in the first place? How did we allow something like Gawker? If it took a millionaire to do this, then we let it get that big, and it's our fault that we allowed Gawker to continue this whole charade for so long. I mean, this is the same group that sent a Twitter mob after Justine Sacco, who refused to take down a possible rape video and then mocked the female who asked him to do just that, who hired Sam Biddle, and you probably know some of the stories that he was involved in. And of course, their campaign against James Franco with the title of gay rapist. And of course, the whole idea of transparency in your media. Of course, you don't know anything about that. You haven't known anything about that since 2008, Kotaku. Lying about being involved in nepotism in the first place, and then when somebody calls you out on it, instead of actually owning up to your own stupidity, what you do is to prey on the sensitivities of minorities in order to get away with the nepotism in the first place, and to confuse people about what the details actually were in that. And that should show you how much they care about minorities. They're willing to use them as a way in order to get away with some of the stuff they were getting away with. I mean, I have said it countless times, Gawker is freaking awful, and this just further proof that they are just effing awful. And to see this happen, regardless of who it was that took it down, regardless of who it is that filed the lawsuit or who bankrolled the lawsuit, it shouldn't matter who funded the lawsuit. This had to happen. Gawker needed to be taken down a peg. Maybe it took this in order for them to wake up, but apparently some of the people, Max Reed and Sam Biddle and Nick Denton, are still not getting it. They don't get it. If you've seen some of their tweets and their articles, they still don't understand that it was their fault. They have no one else to blame for themselves. No one else in the world but themselves to blame. And yet they are trying to project the blame on everybody else. Project the blame on groups, to project the blame onto special interests or to other people in the media. No, this is on you, Gawker, and you alone. You're the ones who chose to oust Condé Nast's executive. You're the ones who tried to oust Peter Thiel. You're the ones who sent that Twitter mob for Justine Sacco. You're the ones who decided to post the Hulk Hogan sex tape and to defy even the law. And I know that the justice system is somewhat broken and somewhat corrupt, but in this instance, that wasn't the case. This was you who did this. You had no reason to post that Hulk Hogan sex tape. You had no reason to report on it. You had no reason to go after Condé Nast's executive. You had no reason whatsoever other than the fact that you could. And that was the difference maker there. You knew you could do it, so you did it. And to hell with who thought any different or who'd say, you know what, it would be good if you just shut up. I mean, Peter Thiel, as far as I'm aware, he didn't really say anything against gay rights. He was actually supporting gay rights, even if he's conservative. Why does that matter to anybody? This whole idea of if you're conservative or liberal, you should be hated for all time time. When did politics get that much in the way of nastiness? When did that become a thing? I don't understand that part. But why they had to go and do that is beyond me. The Justine Sacco thing, you can say what you want about the tweet, and quite frankly, there was a lot to say about that tweet. It was stupid and she should have regretted that, but it shouldn't destroy her life. And here is Sam Biddle, who still doesn't get it. Who still does not get that he was the one that was probably responsible for a lot of things that happened, and not understanding that none of the tweets that he's had has been quite perfect either. He's the one that's trying to ruin her life over a tweet that she probably regrets now, and acting as if we've never tweeted something we later regret it. And no, I didn't like the tweet either, but it doesn't mean I'm going to hold the albatross over her head for all time. And of course, the whole thing with the Condé Nast executive, the whole idea that they would gay shame a person for no reason whatsoever. They had no reason to even talk about it, to even publish a story about him. There was nothing newsworthy that he was even doing other than being the executive of their main competitors at the time. That was what it was about, and that was as slimy as you can get, because for one thing, there was no reason for them in order to oust him. Second of all, that was ruining someone's life. He was married, and the reasons why he had to be ousted in the first place in order to have dirty laundry, if there ever was any out there in the general public. And then third, Gaga was known as being semi-liberal, and liberal people are known to be for gay LGBT communities. Why are you gay shaming anybody in the first goddamn place? Are you saying that being gay is a bad thing? Are you saying that being homosexual is a bad thing? Because it sure as hell looks like you were here. Or is the story had to do something with him cheating on his wife in some sort of way? What was the story? Why should we care? Why should we care about anything you said in that story, Gawker? Whoever published that story should be ashamed. They should have been fired immediately, and yet Gawker had to wait and had to think about taking down the story. And they thought about publishing the story in the first place. They should have never published it in the first goddamn place, and yet they had to think about taking that down. They had to defend it at first before they took it down. That should tell you, that alone, outside of everything else that we've mentioned, that should tell you alone just how slimy and how utterly morally bankrupt Gawker Media had become. As if they had some sort of morality to them in the first damn place. They had to go down. And the way that they went down, Peter Thiel, a multi-millionaire, had to be the one that bankrolled Hulk Hogan to take him down. And I'm not the biggest Hulk Hogan fan in the world either, but I do believe in this instance, I have to agree with him, they messed with the wrong guy, brother. Gawker Media became way too big. Gawker Media became its own worst enemy, and they still don't get it. That is their own goddamn fault to begin with, and it's their fault alone. They cannot blame anybody else for this. They cannot blame some special interest group. They cannot blame nerd culture. They cannot blame Peter Thiel. They cannot blame Hulk Hogan. They cannot blame the law. They can only blame themselves. They can only blame their own people for getting them to this point. And for them to be so big that it had to take Peter Thiel to take them down shows you just how much we're at fault for letting it get that far. We should have seen the writing on the wall right from the get-go, from 2007 on, and yet we did nothing about it. So it was halfway our fault for letting it get to this point. It should have never gotten here. It should have never been uncalled out, if that's a word. It should have been called out a long time ago, and yet we let it get this far. And we need to really look at ourselves in the mirror saying, is this the type of media we want? Is this the type of journalism we are wanting? Is a group who is rejoicing over the fact that they can do this to people, and that still, even now, even when they're bankrupt now, is still not understanding that they did anything wrong. I mean, it's very rare that they even apologize for anything, and they had to think about doing that first on things that it should be clear cut that they should apologize apologize for or never even did anything to these people in the first place. And with how vicious people are in the political spectrum right now, Donald Trump is actually one election away from becoming a president. How is this happening? What world are we living in which this is even possible? That Donald Trump is even this close to becoming a president? But with how vicious and vitriolic we have become to people who not in a million years would ever deserve it, you really think Gawker is something that's needed? I agree. Gawker needed to die. Maybe not the people who are honest people who just needed a place to work at and got caught up in the mess that they were creating. They don't deserve it. They deserve better. And hopefully they go to places that uses their skills for something that is actually worthwhile in journalism and doesn't have to work under Sam Biddle, doesn't have to work under Nick Denton or Max Reed or anybody else who was involved in making them have to report on stories that should have never been reported on and were never stories to begin with. But yes, Gawker had to go down. They had to go down a peg. And you would hope this would be a wake-up call to those people who were on the highest ups there. But judging from how they've been tweeting and how they've been responding to people who say you got what was coming to you, I don't think that's the case. I think Nick Denton is going to continue to think that he did nothing wrong, that he is above everybody else, and he's this douchebag with a heart of gold who was doing something good with the sites that he had made and the industry that he had created. You know what? No, you were not in any sort of way a good addition to the spectrum of journalism. You were what was so wrong with it. And even when you were in the right on some of the stories that you were reporting, you found some way to twist it around to make it utterly morally bankrupt on what you were doing. After you ousted people who had no business even being reported on, after you lied about everything from what people had said to how you whined because people were wanting you to be more transparent in coverage of various things in various mediums. The list went on and on and on. And in a matter of speaking, you tried to fight the law, and the law eventually did win. And good riddance to Gawker Media, because the people who worked under you, who wanted to just make an honest living without having to worry about reporting on things that should have never have graced your websites, deserve better than you. We all do. And that's gonna do it for this edition of the special report. Thanks again for watching. If you liked what you've seen, please go hit that like button and comment down below about what you thought about the story. And of course, I don't know if I said this, but please go and subscribe for more Geek Gaming Culture and can report on things 100 times better than Gawker Media, but then an ant can report on things 10 times better than Gawker Media. My name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.